And I see Sister Mary Kay on the screen. I have a lovely introduction written on the other computer for you.
That's
Uh,
fine. No problem.
but what I will say is before we hear from Sister Mary Kay, I think it's really important to remember that the Marianite sisters are one of the four communities established by Father Moreau. It's a trap to think that Holy Cross is just the priests or just the brothers or even just the sisters of Holy Cross. It's also the Marianite sisters and people all over the world. So, sister, I will turn it over to you, and then I'm going to run over into the other room and repair that broken monitor. So,
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Is it clear? Give me a high sign or something. Great. Well, thanks to Marco, you know that I am an elder in Holy Cross. Thank you, Marco, for bringing back those wonderful memories of our time at the international session. This morning, I, I have to say to all of you, I'm energized, I'm edified, I'm really blown away by the work of the association. And from the youngest person we've heard from today to those of us who qualify in my category, it's just a wonderful gift and blessing for us to see how Holy Cross continues today in so many varied ways through the gifts of so many people. Actually, this morning, Father Moreau wanted to join us for this gathering today because he himself established associations early on in the congregation. He knew that they were critical to the foundation and the continuance of the congregation. However, at this moment, he's very busy with many places and people throughout the congregation. He wanted to remind us, though, that he remains a very simple instrument in the hand of God as he continues to lead and guide us in the various parts of the world where Holy Cross is today. He sends his eternal gratitude to all of you who continue the work of the congregation through the association. In addition to that, he has sent a letter. We know he loved to write letters, wrote many, many letters in his lifetime. So now I would like to begin the letter, and you'll have to just adjust to the accent coming from South Louisiana and not from Le Mans, France. My dear friends, may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, the blessing of his mother, and the protection of Saint Joseph be always with you. Thank you for allowing me to be a part of your associate gathering. I cannot tell you how much this means to me. I was asked to share with you what are the early gifts of Holy Cross. What happened at the very beginning? And to do that, I'm going to use the image of soil and seed. Actually, we know that the nature of soil is to grow a living organism. And depending on the climate and the type of soil, determines what will be brought forth. If we want something very specific to come forth, we have to work very diligently to make that happen. So, what was the soil of my early years? In post revolution France, priests, neighbors, friends had been martyred. Their blood actually soaked into the French soil. Some clergy and religious had been faithful to the church at the risk of their own lives. Some had sided with the government to save their lives. Many fled the country, leaving France devoid of ministers of the faith. Education and healthcare were non-existent. You can imagine the political tensions, the ravaged relationships, the emotional texture of the time, actually quite similar to the texture of our present time in this world. The soil of Laigne was comprised of simple folk, marked with honesty and integrity. The family was deeply rooted in the soil of relationships. In this environment, the people who were most instrumental in tilling and working the soil of my life, they were my parents, my family, my pastor, and others at Chateau Gontier. Let me share a bit, first of all, about my parents. My parents were simple folks. They were hard-working people. They married on February 12, 1784, 5 years before the outbreak of the French Revolution. They were 25 years old. Their own parents were deceased at the time of their marriage, so they had very little family support system. They began their marriage, however, relying on the strength of their faith, which had sustained them before, during, and now after the revolution. They also relied on the neighbors who surrounded them in this tiny village of Laigne on Belin. And life at this time in this village, you have to understand, it was centered on the people in the immediate environment who knew and trusted one another and who had actually survived the revolution together. Let me tell you about my father, Louis. He was a wine merchant. In all sorts of weather, he would load the wagon, leave the village, and go sell the wine to the neighboring villages on the fringes of Le Mans, which it is about 30 miles away. He did not know how to read or write, so his accounting was very rudimentary. He was very honest, and when he would come home from his travels to the neighboring villages, he would sit at the table with those of us who could read and write, and we would develop his accounting system for him. He wanted to make sure that everything was correct. He was very intent on never overcharging and never incurring any debts himself. Oh, I want to tell you about our mother. She was a farmer and a gardener. She worked the land. She taught us about plants, about flowers, and how they grew in very distinct soil, depending on if the soil was acid or alkaline, depending on the amount of light received and darkness present to the plants. We had a tiny parcel of property. She tilled this soil and grew the vegetables in this tiny parcel. to feed the 14 of us, 14 children. Actually, of the 14, 11 survived into adulthood. This was primarily due to the lack of education, sanitation, and the ever-present reality of the possibility of contagious disease. You can only imagine the toil that these losses took on our parents, and also the impact that they had on each of us. In addition to being a farmer, our mother was a born educator. In the evening by the firelight, after the chores were done, she'd gather us all around her and teach us our catechism and our prayers. What a sight that must have been, and how much patience our mother had to have the 11 of us after the end of a day doing the teaching and the education. Gratefully, our mother, Louise, and our father, Louis, were educators in the faith, educators by example and by word and by sharing. Through this, we were trained early on to be members of our family, responsible members of our community, and also active in parish life. In looking back at the journey of those others who prepared the soil for me, I have to tell you about my oldest sister, Victoire. Victoire was 7 years older than myself, and she helped to prepare me for my first communion. Usually, you waited till 12 years old to receive your first communion. But our pastor, Father Julian LaProvost, said I was ready. He too was very instrumental in my life. He was actually exceptional. He had exercised his priestly ministry during the French Revolution in hiding, risking his own life to take the sacraments to people in need throughout the area. When the revolution was over, he worked tirelessly in our parish to transform it. He would gather us, the young boys, in the rectory for our education. When I was 12, he approached my father and he asked him if he would allow me to further my education. My father listened as he said to him, I think he has a vocation to be a priest. Well, I wondered why the pastor thought that. Yes, I was on time for most activities. And yes, I could be a good organizer, but I was also very mischievous and often was the one getting the other youngsters in the parish involved in activities that our parents didn't agree with. Interestingly, my father didn't jump at this suggestion. He thought I was too young, that I needed more time with the family and with working the land. My father did not want me to lose myself in books at an early age and to miss the benefit of manual labor. Finally, my parents came to a decision, and they agreed that I could begin the study of Latin with 3 other young boys. But my father insisted that I continue to pasture the sheep and the cattle outside of class time. My father was a very wise man, and what a gift he gave to me. I learned early on the responsibilities of being a shepherd, of tending to the needs of others. As you can see, we were a very close-knit family. And although we had little opportunity early on for formal education, I so appreciated the gift of my sister Cecile. She was known as the washwoman of Laigne. She took care of the clothes in the village. And she was able to read and write. So as time went on and I would move away from the family, she's the one who kept up with my letters and with correspondence with the family. In 1814, I set off for high school at Chateau Gontier, 60 miles away. I was 15 years old. My father walked with me that first day, helping me to carry my books and belongings. He met and made arrangements with the principal, Abbe Moreau, and then my father placed his gaze upon me, turned around, and walked home again. No doubt that was a moment of tilling of his own soil. I do believe firmly till now that my studies were paid for by our pastor, Father Julian, and also for a dear friend in our parish, Mademoiselle de Boismont, who educated the young girls in her home. They are truly friends and benefactors early on in Holy Cross. While at Chateau, I had the good fortune of meeting Father Louis John Filion, the assistant director of the school. He became my spiritual director, my guide, and my friend, and he continued to influence my spiritual life for many years ahead. When I left Chateau Gontier in the fall of 1816 to move to St. Vincent Seminary in Le Mans, I had many emotions. I actually thought my heart would break, and my family felt the same way. They didn't want me to leave, and I myself struggled with my departure. They cried, and I had tears as well. I felt so torn between wanting to stay with them and needing to leave and enter the seminary. I have to tell you, I was especially attached to my mother, and I asked my siblings to please take care of her because she was really struggling with my departure. Before leaving to go to St. Vincent's, I had the chance to visit with them and to share some thoughts, especially with my parents, that I now would like to share with you, that I hope you can resonate with. How many precious memories present themselves to my mind, dear parents, as I reflect on the beautiful days that we have spent together. If I consider the beginning and the progress of each of my brothers and sisters, I see you involved in the care of a difficult business to obtain for us the necessities of life and to raise us in the proper way. Here I see you, dear Father, traveling from village to village across the countryside in all sorts of weather. Here I see you, dear mother, concerned every day about the lives of your children, always solicitous about what would become of each of us. I encourage you now, dear parents, rejoice in the happiness of having raised us so successfully. Rejoice in the sight of all of us being able to conduct ourselves in the world. Rejoice in the pleasure, perhaps, of seeing one of your children become a priest. I pray that peace and concord will give joy to the rest of your days. My friends, I hope that you have moments in your life that you remember, that you treasure, moments of togetherness, moments of insight, moments of grief and struggle, as well as joy and happiness. Moments that you recognize the providential working of God in your life and in the early life of your families. Because we were so close as a family, I want to share with you a very deep tilling of the soil of my life. My mother died in 1825. She was 20, I was 26 years old. She was 59 years old. I remember that she died as she had lived, with sentiments of lively faith and perfect resignation to the will of God. Her last moments were singularly edifying and have left us with such precious memories. She had long borne many crosses, following Jesus Christ and imitating his patience. Her devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary was great, and I have no doubt that Mary was her companion in these final moments, standing very close to her. She had such a joyful expression on her face during the 24 hours that her body was exposed to the numerous persons who came to pray for the repose of her soul. Her smile indicated to everyone the peace of her conscience and of her passing. Some people, on seeing her, the smile on her face, the peace on her face, they could not refrain from kissing her. Without any agony, she was conscious to the end, and she died, holding my hand. Her eyes fixed themselves on me for the last time, and she repeated 3 times after me, Lord, into your hands I commend my spirit. There was something else very special about her death that I want to share with you. About the middle of the night, while I was praying at her bedside, 2 angels appeared over her bed, holding a crown in their hands. I offer this memory to you for your own reflection, and I share with you that the serenity of her death was the stamp of the seal of the Lord's love in her heart. In hindsight, I know it was my mother who, from my earliest years, opened for me the way that led to my relationship with the Lord and his mother. I tell you, I did not know what it was to lose a mother who had sacrificed herself so entirely for her children, But I knew at that moment, for so long after she died, I struggled. I struggled with wanting to actually be with her and also wanting to do whatever the good God was asking of me. And in my grief, two questions wrestled painfully in my heart. When will I be with my mother? And Lord, what do you want of me? The soil of my faith life was again deeply and painfully tilled at the time of my father's death in 1830. I wrote an account of his death, and I want to share those notes with you now in this letter. Our father, Louis Moreau, died having patiently suffered blindness for more than 5 years. I remember those last days as if they were yesterday. The good Father said to us, I pray the good Lord will bless you, and I bless you myself with all my heart, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Then we asked our Father to forgive us, and he answered us, everything is erased from my heart. Everything is erased from my heart. The next day, Mademoiselle de Boismont, our good friend from the parish, came to visit him, and she asked him, how are you doing? I must go to see God, he said. And in the evening, he said, my God, why have I begun to love you so late? Why have I begun to love you so late? Then he prayed, may your gospel be announced everywhere on earth. May all my children sing your praise. May all your missionaries be accepted everywhere. This is what I wish, Lord. This, you know, Lord, is what I want. The following day, he urged us to remain united to one another and to love God. His struggle with death continued for 6 days. In the midst of his sufferings, our good God found time to joke about what was happening. He told us, I am in God's forgotten corner. God keeps leaving me here. He clasped his crucifix, he kissed it repeatedly, and he answered amen to all of our prayers. On Sunday at 10 a.m., he lost consciousness while the Salve Regina was being sung at Mass in the church right across from our home. Coming to his senses in the evening, he said, God still does not want me. Death has passed over my bed twice and left me. Lord, have mercy on me. Lord, please take my soul. In the middle of the night, God has forgotten me. Lord, let's go. Take courage. Be firm, Lord, and this time try not to miss me. The next morning, he told us, now at last the time has come. And as I was reciting the litany of the dying, and at the moment when I was saying, Give your hands and give your soul into the hands of God. May the angels lead you into paradise. He expired. My dear friends, like no other experiences in our lives, the loss of those nearest and dear to us demands plowing of our soil. There is an abrupt turning of the earth, and a hollowness is created. The soil craves for silence. It craves to lie fallow, to be washed, to be cleansed and renewed, to be turned over and over, to open to new life. The soil of my early life was tilled, sometimes gently, sometimes deeply, sometimes by hand, by plow, by sickle. It was tilled at Laigne on Belin, in Chateau Gontier, in Le Mans, at all times and in all seasons. It was tilled with love. In these early formative years, faith and love sprouted in the midst of trials and difficulties, in hopes and joys of a community of believers in the aftermath of the French Revolution. Out of war, violence, betrayal, disillusionment, infidelity and fidelity, and forgiveness, my parents, my family, Father Julien, Mademoiselle de Boismont, Abbe Moreau, Father Louis Jean Filion, and others use their hands to plow the soil, to sow the seeds for a work of resurrection. Under their care, with their love, the providential work of God was unfolding. The fruit of these original efforts sustained me throughout my life. And at the end of my life, as at the beginning, I was cared for by my family and then by my friends, the Marianite sisters. I am eternally grateful for their support and care, which enabled me to continue planting seeds until my very last breath. I'd like to ask us to pause now, wherever you are, and honor the memory of all those in Laigne and beyond who have gone before us, who have zealously provided the essential environment for this tree of Holy Cross.
Thank you, sister. That was beautiful.
Through the lens of my story, I'm not finished.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Not finished. Through the lens of my story, I hope you see reflections of your own life experiences, how the Lord is providentially nurturing you in Holy Cross, tilling your soil, planting seeds, providing the essential environment for your participation in this work of Holy Cross. As I once held the hands of my parents, I now hold your hands in mine. I assure you that I keep you in my heart, and I remain affectionately and deeply united with you in the hearts of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, and in the cross, our only hope. Father Basil Moreau.
Thank you again. I know what strikes me about your remarks, sister, is the story of Holy Cross is a family story, and it's right from the beginning, and we see it in Brother Jimmy's reflections. We see it in the connection between Moreau and Dujari, and of course now we see it in the real connection that Father Moreau had with his own mom and dad. So as we go into the breakout rooms, perhaps that's something that we can think about is this idea of being part of a family.